Hey there, friends. Welcome back to Where the Macabre Things Are. I am Molly. If you don't know about me, I'm a self published author. I run this little YouTube channel. I am the co founder of the Dark Veil Society. But my most important role tonight is I am the host. I will be hosting an awesome horror author on my channel tonight. So let's go ahead and bring him on, Christopher Michael.
How's it
Hey there,
going?
Chris. How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Excellent. I'm doing well.
Mhm.
Um, so we're just gonna start with something easy. How was your day?
Not too bad. I think you can see I'm broadcasting straight from a broom closet or something like that, so it should be good.
Excellent, excellent.
It was a day
Yeah,
off, so that's always a plus.
yes. We both had days off, and we both had jujitsu practices to run to
Yes.
for our littles. So that was
hmm
pretty cool.
How old's yours?
Um, mine, she's 11, my oldest.
Okay, my oldest is 9. So.
Okay, very
hmm
cool. Do you have like with my oldest, I won't get like too deep into it, but
Yeah.
we have kind of a story as to why she ended up in jujitsu.
Oh.
Long story short was she was getting bullied, and basically at the end of the day, the schools can only protect so much.
hmm
Parents can only protect so much. So we kind of started looking for other options. What can we do? And at the end of the day, only she can protect herself.
hmm
So we got into jujitsu. Being fans of MMA, Gracie was a big name to us. So we found a Gracie gym nearby and we got her enrolled. And they do a bully proof program, which is pretty cool because, they're not in
hmm
there like, oh, if you come across a bully, just demolish them, annihilate
hmm
your enemies. They teach them some
Yeah.
pretty good skills. So I don't know if you have a similar story that you want to share, but sometimes.
With mine, it's like I actually got my son into it because I guess his personality reminded me a lot of me when I was growing up, and I just got bullied relentlessly. And he's like very nice kid. He's like one of like the good hearted kids. My second one's, the jury's still out on that one, but the he's just so nice. And so I was scared this like he was going to get bullied. So at 5 years old, we were living in El Paso, Texas. Same thing, there was a Gracie gym that was there, and I was like, you know what, let's let's just put him in there and see how it goes. And it was like it went very, very well. Then we moved out to where we are now, and he took probably about 6 months off because I could tell it was like this gym that is here is not as big. So he was kind of, you could tell this, like he kind of fell out of it. He was getting bored. It looked like he was falling asleep in the middle of his matches or something. I was like, oh my God, dude. Um, so I took him out of it, put him in soccer for a little bit and stuff like that. And then I just recently got him back into it, and it was like complete switch. Like all of a sudden, it was like he remembered all his moves. He was doing everything that he. I was in shock, but I think one good success story though, and he told me about it, but I didn't. I don't want to say I didn't believe him, but I was like, yeah, maybe he's exaggerating. But there was a little girl at school who I guess some kid threw a paper airplane and hit her in the face with it, and she like tore up his paper airplane. And I guess he pulled her out of the seat and started pushing her up against the wall and was like really hurting her. And my son came up behind him and like threw him away from her and said, like, get off of her, I'll fight you if I have to, or something like that. And he left her alone. I thought he was honestly like exaggerating until the girl's mom approached me at school and she was like, "Can you like just tell Eric like thank you, cuz like my daughter like came home and said like Eric saved me from like, like being like beat up and stuff." So I
Aw.
was like, "Oh man." I was like,
That's a
"Ah, that's a
great
good one."
moment. Yeah, that's when you
Mhm.
know, like, yes, this is being put into good practice. That's an awesome
Mhm.
story. That's
Yeah.
super cool.
It made me feel good about it, and like the judgment too. Like it was like it didn't turn into a fight. He just said like
Right.
it will, but it's on you.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about the bully proof program is they're like, we want you to work on many, many things before it comes to the use of, force, but we
hmm
want you to be able to do that if you need to.
Yeah, Yeah. And it took me a long time to overcome that I guess like that fear of other people. It's so weird, like thinking about it growing up. I was like, what was I so scared of? I was like, those kids were exactly my size, exactly my strength. Like there was nothing about them that was like anything extreme or something like that. But I was scared to death of the idea of getting punched in the face. I was
Right.
like, the idea of just getting beat up was just could not.
Well, yeah, that's nobody wants to have to deal with that for sure.
Yeah. Now, well,
So
happens a little bit more often now. So
we'll get to that.
yeah.
So, Texas, how many different places have you lived? You
Oh
move
God.
around a lot?
Yeah. So like I call Montana my home. Like that was where I spent like the vast majority of my childhood, probably from like second or third grade until to like my adult life and everything like that. But now you know you're getting old though when you start realizing that it's like you've actually been an adult longer than you were a kid. So it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
um, but I've lived a lot of different places. So I joined the army, went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, went to Afghanistan, then came back, did a couple more years back there, and then I went to Korea. Then when I was in Korea, I went to a whole bunch of places, like got to do like Operation Cobra Gold in Thailand and stuff like that. Then I went from Korea to Italy and got to do different stuff there. Like got to go to like Turkey, Ukraine, the Balkans, like a whole bunch of stuff. Then got out of the army, came back, went to Texas with my current job, did 5 years there, and now I'm here in the Florida Keys.
Nice. Nice. Do you
Yeah.
like living there? Is that like would is that your preferred place if you could pick anywhere?
I'm not going to complain about it. That's for sure. I mean, it's expensive. I'm going to say that
Okay.
it's like it is a killer out here and stuff like that. Especially like when you move from like a place like in Texas, where it's like, oh man, there's like a mansion for sale for like 250K. Like wow, and then you come out here and you're like, oh look at that ugly shanty trailer for like $750,000 or something like that. So it's a little
Yeah.
bit different, but it's the it's beautiful. Between here and Montana, I keep saying I'm like if it's not here, then it'd be Montana. But I love it down here. It's amazing.
That's cool. Do you live in a populated area or are you cuz okay, so I've been to Florida one time and I'm just going to be
Mhm.
real honest, I hated every moment of it. Um but I went for Disney, so I was in the really
Oh
yeah. So I it was and it was in July.
no, no.
Yeah, it was really touristy, and if anybody knows me, I like this right here is exactly where I like to be. I like to be like by myself. We live in a pretty rural area.
Yeah,
So I did not enjoy myself when we went. I did
uh,
because the kids had a great time. You know what I mean? But like
yeah.
if anybody like nobody could pay me to live in that area. So I was just
Yeah.
curious like are there actually places in Florida that are like rural or how does that
Yeah,
work?
yeah. So there's actually a lot of rural places in Florida. There's a lot of like farmland and stuff like that, like all over, like especially Central Florida. There's a lot of farm, but down here in the Keys, it's very they actually have like a lot of things set up to keep it so it's not a populated place. Like there's no really new building here. Everything is old buildings, or if you want to build something new, it has to be in the place of something that was already there and then just is getting demolished and put in. But it's very weird how they're trying to actively create an environment where there's not a lot of people. So it's
Right.
like my kids are playing in the street, like there's no cars. Like it's like you can see a car coming from like a half mile away or something like that. If there is one
Right.
coming, it's brings me back to that kind of that Montana, like small town feel and everything like that. And there's tourists. There's always going to be tourists, and
Right.
sometimes, especially like holidays, you're just like, oh my god, these people suck at driving. Um, but I really like it. It was a weird adjustment at first. Um, but yeah, I really love it now. I would say that it's like if you get a chance to come down to the Keys sometime, try it. It's when you said Disney, oh
Yeah.
my God. Oh, I get so I love being there because I'm with my kids, but
Right.
also at the same time, I'm just like I'm so stressed out.
Mhm.
Like it's so like cramped and I don't like it when there's like people bumping into me and stuff like that. Like I know I shouldn't
Yeah.
take offense to it, but I feel like I should at the same time. So I'm kind of like, oh man, I hate this. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
believe
a
me.
lot. It was a lot. But, we had a great time. I got to see the princesses and all of that, so
Oh, nice. I have 2 boys, so I don't have to worry about that part.
there you go. Yeah, yeah, it was like, cause you have to pick what parks you wanna do, and it was pretty easy because both of our kids are younger and girls, so
Mhm.
they pretty much, agreed on where they wanted to go. My dog keeps moving my chair, sorry.
What kind of dog do you have?
I have 3. I have a
Oh,
pit
nice,
bull, I have a
nice.
lab, and I have this little, he's like an Australian cattle dog mixed with shepherd. He's our new puppy, and he's interesting,
Oh,
so
I got 2 also, so
Yeah, what kind?
I got a Chow Retriever mix.
Okay.
He's like 12 or 13 at this point. He's getting pretty old. And I have a 2-year-old German Shepherd.
Very cool,
Yep,
very
and
cool.
he's a goof. I love him to death though, so
Erin, thanks for popping in, appreciate you. Grifkin, my kids are in their 20s and out of the house.
nice.
Yeah, I see, the problem is I work with a bunch of young people. So I
Yeah.
was at work over the weekend and they were talking about people they went to high school with and they were like, "Oh, did you go with this guy?" And she goes, "No, he's old. He's like 30." And I was like, "Oh, excuse me. I'm
I was
right
like,
here."
"Whoa."
I know. I took much offense, but yeah, it's different, working in
Oh, yeah.
different areas and fields because I get a lot of the young whippersnappers and I just feel old all the time.
Oh, yeah. Like, the army was horrible. It's like once you cross 30, like, they pretty much, like, assume that it's like you should be just taken out and put out of your misery or something because 'cause you're over the hill.
Yeah, I can imagine that's another field where you're old a lot younger.
Oh, yeah. Like, they like, "How old are you?" It's like, "Oh, 32." They're like, "Wow, you're so old." And it's like, "Shut up."
The things you must have seen.
Yeah, I know. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's the way they do it because it's like, it's that weird short amount of time. It's like there's people who do that career, but there's also people who only do it for a few years and then they go. So they get this weird idea that it's like if you've gone anything past 4 years, like, wow, you've seen some shit or something like that. Or like there would be some guy who has 20 years and they're like, man, he must have been in like Vietnam or something. It's like, no, he was born in
Oh, no.
83. Like he's
I love it. I love it. Yeah,
uh,
they never cease to just make us feel way
hmm
too old. All
nah,
right. So let's
I'm about
start
to hit
getting
40 soon.
into
So
Yeah. Yep, well, then you're gonna get it even more, unfortunately, so
yeah, oh yeah, I'm waiting.
Alright, let's actually talk about some book stuff. Do you wanna tell us about your book?
Yeah, so the book is Tomb of the Black Pharaoh, and it's the first in my series called Danforth Eldritch Tales of World War II. Um, a funny little story was this was not actually ever supposed to be a book, I guess. I was writing on another piece of work, and I guess one of the things about kind of like Lovecraftian horror is it's written from a perspective of kind of like how would you say it? I guess like a narrator that you could feel like you could trust.
Okay.
But there's always sort of like that mysterious aspect. You don't really know what's going on. Until it starts like creeping up on you. But I was writing this other piece. It was supposed to be kind of in the same vein, but it was taking place in modern times. And it started to get kind of like so big and bombastic and ridiculous that I was kind of like, I feel like I've completely lost the thread.
Yeah.
But the thing with Danforth is I put that in that story as an Easter egg, just sort of like there for like fans of Lovecraft. And when that story fell through, um, I just was like, oh, maybe I'll do this for a short story. I
Mhm.
took it, made it into a short story, and sent it to a publisher during a contest. And they said, we really love this short story. Could you expand it into a full length novel? So, like rapid fire, like I expanded into a full length novel, got it all like out, sent it to them, and they were like, no. So I ended up I had like this full length novel. I was like, this is the first time I've ever actually finished anything I've ever wrote. Like it
Right.
was new. So I self published it, and yeah, now I've been kind of on a roll. I'm already on working on part two and stuff. But yeah, it's I guess for people who've ever read Lovecraft, it's a direct sequel to The Mountains of Madness.
Okay.
The character Danforth actually was kind of a side character in that. He sort of I forget the term, but it's the character that is representing what the audience who's reading it is feeling, I guess, at that time. The narrator's like going through all
Right.
this, you're reading it and you're just like, dude, are you stupid or something? Like, do you not see what's happening here? But
Right.
like Danforth's in there, and he's always saying, he's like, oh, he was making some offensive insinuations that this might be happening, or oh, it's like he noticed this or noticed that, and it's like this dude's the only one in the story who seems to actually know what's happening. So I took him, turned him into a character, and I'm a huge World War II buff, so I felt like that was something that I wanted to throw in there, keep it in that vein.
That is super cool. That is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have not had the pleasure of reading it yet, but
Mm-hmm.
I will. My, death by TBR, as
Oh
we know.
God,
But
yeah.
it's so crazy. And the bad thing is, I think I've gotten 3 emails in the past 2 days of people like, "Will you review my book?" And I love that. I love getting requests, but I can't. I tell people like, if it seems like it's something up my alley, then I will tell them absolutely. But
Mm-hmm.
I I've got a long ways to go before I might get
Yeah.
to it. So it's just super cool that people are reaching out and like asking me to read their book, but
There's
it'll be
also
a
a lot of
while.
things I see too, where it's like, if someone wants you to read their book and give a review, you want it to be genuine, right? You want it to sound
Mhm.
like, I feel like I see a lot of things now where people review a book, but I'm like, I swear to God, he just put that into AI and just
Oh,
cranked out like a generic like review and like
right.
slapped it on somebody's book. Because I was like, there's nothing in there that tells you anything about how good the book is, bad, like anything. It's just like, oh, it was a riveting tale. Like, okay, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, there's like people that contact me on Instagram all the time that are like, "We'd love to review your book." And then you go to their profiles and it's like every book has 5 stars and every review looks exactly the same. And it's like, I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
love a 5-star review, but I'm not going to pay you
Yeah.
$75 for it. So,
No.
but thanks
Oh yeah.
anyway.
Oh, the people who try to give you like a trade or something like
Right.
that. Were like, oh, you review
Right.
my book and I'll review yours, and then they give you the same thing. It's like something like cheesy ass thing. It's like, you realize I just
Mhm.
spent time reading this book, and you gave me like that generic review. Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah. Hey, Corvina, we've got some Dark Veil in
Hey,
here. Let's go. And the man himself, Triple B, thanks for being here. And then Mark from Avid Book Junkie.
everybody's
We,
coming in.
yeah, we got JL. That's another one on my TBR, A Dangerous Man. I gotta check that book out. I hear such good things about it all the time.
Nice.
Our TBRs will be haunting us in the afterlife. Yes, absolutely,
Oh God.
Elizabeth. Thank you for being here, love. I feel that my TBR is full of must reads right now. Yes. Oh my gosh. It's
I
like,
don't know if there's enough time in your life sometimes to read these things. And I'm a slow
no.
reader, or I don't read as much as I do writing. So it
Yeah.
just, I promise people I'll read their book, and I'm like, oh my God, I feel like such a jerk because I haven't gotten to it yet.
If it had pages and words and covers on both ends, 5 stars. You know, I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not, but
That's what some of them are like.
when I review books, I I get into a lot of genres that I used to say were not really my genre, but I found that I really like a lot of things about sci-fi, about fantasy. I kind of try to take myself out of, reviewing books, especially when reviewing self-published, if they like if they put their heart and soul into it, if it wasn't just like a first draft, there's all these mistakes, they didn't finish this plot, like I just kind of try to take a little bit out of myself when reviewing books and just
Mhm.
see it for what it is. And, even if it's not 100% my genre, I know it's going to be somebody else's because it's such a well done work. So, pages and words and covers are definitely 5 star reads.
It's just weird with book reviews, right? Because it's like, how can you really trust sometimes a book review when they're like, this book was crap? It's like, okay, thanks. That's your opinion. Someone else might
Mhm.
find it very good, or somebody's like, this is the best book I've ever written, or best book I've ever read. And then you go and you
Mhm.
read it, and you're like, were we reading the same book? Like,
Yeah. Yes, I have, but yeah, I have read some that are like that.
there's
Not
some that are
really any
popular
indie.
sometimes. There's
That's
some
what I
that
was
are
gonna say.
popular. My
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
There, I don't want to trash on the book publicly and stuff because it's just not becoming and stuff. But there's this one book. It's horror. It's extremely popular. I think it's probably going to win its category for the Bram Stokers this year. But it was like I kept hearing about it and hearing about it and hearing about it, and I was like it was in the same category that I was in the recommendation. So I was like, I guess I got to read it. Let's see how it is. And I read it and I was just like, oh boy,
Mhm.
what, what? I was like, I can't understand why this book exists at all. like, like there's not too often that it's like I outright just say that I hate something, but I was like, I hated this book. I read the other ones in the category too, so I don't want to think like it's just bias and stuff like that. But it was like some of those were really, really good books. You're like,
Right.
I could definitely see how that could be in that category because that was very well written or whatnot. But then you read that one, and it's just like, what? What? Like, why? How does this have like 4.5 stars and like
Right.
10,000 reviews?
Yeah, it's funny. I think the only 2 books that I've read, at least in the past 2 years, that I feel that way about were both trad books.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah,
obviously nothing against trad either. It's just, well, okay, one of them, one of them, I'm gonna tell you what it was
go ahead.
because, and I'm gonna get so much hate for this. I watched the show on Netflix and loved it, and I was like, "Oh, it's a book," and I was like, "It's a little bit older, but I'm gonna check it out." And by a little bit older, I mean I think it was written in the 50s, and it was The Haunting of Hill House
Oh,
by
you didn't
Shirley
like it?
Jackson. No,
I
I did
Shirley
not.
Jackson's a hit or miss. Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you that the I think the show was an improvement over the book.
Mhm, yeah. But of course, because she's no longer with us, I guess they can just do whatever they want with that title.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just didn't age well. Like I understand it was a different time period, but I just felt like all the women in it were very like, I'm gonna do something crazy and wear trousers today. I don't know. It just it was just really I finished it. I finished it all the way through. It had a couple of good moments, but it wasn't my thing.
All right, so I'm gonna do something ballsy and actually like name the book and stuff.
Okay.
Did you read The Eyes Are the Best Part?
No, I've heard of it though.
That was it. Maybe
Was it?
because it was like a feminine rage book or something like that that I just
Yeah.
couldn't get on board with it. But there was just so much in there where I was just like, oh, this is like
That's
uh,
okay. Everybody's got their opinions. I was worried you were gonna say incidents around the house though, and then I was gonna have to end the stream altogether. No, I'm kidding. That was a
I
really
haven't
good
read
one
that
that
one.
I read. It's Josh Mallerman. He wrote Bird Box, and
Okay,
it's like a
okay.
little girl who's being haunted. I for some reason I thought that because I felt like it's in for the one of the Bram Stokers, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't really follow on that too
Okay.
well.
Hmm.
But yeah, I
Yeah,
wanted to check out if you have time.
it was just kind of funny because I think I just saw like one like YouTube reviewer too that was reviewing it, and man, she hit all the notes on like everything. I was like, okay, so cool. I am not
It's
going
not just
insane.
me.
Somebody else read the book and has the exact same thoughts that I do. I was like, thank God, I feel vindicated. like,
That see, you're not the only one. That's perfect.
and
Perfect.
it's there's some cool things about it. Like it's written. what's her name? So Monica Kim's the author, and she writes it from the perspective of like a young Korean girl and stuff like that. So it kind of gives like a cool, like certain aspects of it is like it's cool, like kind of cultural things and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
but I guess it's like one, sometimes I have a hard time reading books that sound like there's a teenager talking.
Okay.
There
Okay.
that kind of maybe young adult type of sound to it,
Right.
especially for horror. I have a
Right.
hard time sometimes with it because I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'm sounding all hoity toity or something right now, but
No, everybody has their preferences.
yeah.
It's definitely. Oh, hey, Ryan K. Oh, Diary.
Oh,
Chuck Palahniuk. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I've never heard that pronounced actually, but I read Diary, but it's been like 15 years, and I don't remember. But I'll have to reread it, or at least maybe look at the blurb and see if I remember anything. But of course, I love Fight Club, so that was
hmm.
uh that was a good one.
Diary. Diary. I haven't read that one. So now I feel now I
Yeah,
feel like I'm like
I
totally
can
out of the loop.
picture yeah, I can picture the cover in my head, but it has just been like I said, it's been a long time because I'm old, so
So, oh, what we got? Mallerman on last
Malaman
year.
on Last Year, that is super cool. He seems like a really cool guy. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, a podcast I was just on recently and stuff like that. They're a bunch of good guys. They had Ramsey Campbell on their 100th episode and stuff like that. I thought that was
That's
really
super
really
cool.
cool. It's
That's
always
definitely
cool when like the authors will come down to our level and like hang
right.
with us. They leave their penthouse to come down into the slums with us people.
I know that is really cool. I know sometimes like some even smaller booktubers are like, yeah, I just emailed them and they were like, sure, I'll come on your podcast or I'll come on your show. And it's like, because they're
It can
just
be
normal
really
people.
chill. They're just regular
Yeah.
people. Like I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes it's like because they've gotten some success with as writers and stuff, we think that they're like it's like, oh, I'm basically like emailing Brad Pitt and asking if he'll come on
Right.
my podcast or something. This like they're like, no, dude, I'm just living in my house in the backwoods and writing on a book. Like, yeah, I'm glad you had like on me on the podcast. I'm not
I
doing
haven't
anything.
I
Like,
haven't talked to anybody in weeks. I'd love
yeah,
to.
exactly. I haven't seen you in contact. Like, I would definitely come on.
Yeah. That's too funny. Yeah, like Beard of Darkness had on Jay Kristoff recently, and that was super
Ooh.
cool. He's a really chill guy. He keeps recommending me Jay Kristoff's Empire of the Vampire. Hopefully I said that right. Don't unsubscribe from me. But it's a little bit outside of like horror has always been my genre, fantasy and sci-fi and dark
Mhm.
fantasy. I'm very much newer to that, but I enjoy kind of getting into that and Matt from Beard of Darkness told me I would probably like it. It's on the
Mhm.
TBR, but we all know how that goes. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I got to check it out. But that interview was super cool too. He seems like a super, super chill guy.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that was cool.
definitely. Yeah, and I mean, most of the big name authors and stuff, I guess, like, horror's always been my thing too. I think we all saw that, I can't remember how many weeks ago it was, but somebody posted this, like, that they had crap books when they were growing up in like English class and stuff. I think maybe
Hmm.
like it was somebody ripping on the Great Gatsby or something.
Right.
Um, which call me a troglodyte. I haven't actually read it, so I don't. I
I've
can't really.
never, yeah.
But I felt like that was something I avoided because a lot of guys were like, "Oh yeah, like we had to read Catcher in the Rye when we were in school, or we had to read like this or The Grapes of Wrath or all that." I was like, my English teacher gave us Dune and Frankenstein and like a couple other like this. They got us in like the sci-fi and horror genres and stuff. And funny thing was when I read Frankenstein as a teenage boy, I hated it. And I was like, what a boring ass book. This is nothing like the movie or something like that. But then when I read it as an adult, I was like,
Hmm.
this is actually really, really cool. And not to mention, it was like maybe I was just a dumb teenager, but like as an adult, I was like, I can appreciate how ahead of its time it really was.
For sure. Yeah. I tried to read Dracula when I was in like middle school
Hmm.
and it was way over my head and that if I remember correctly, that's a chonky book. I
Hmm.
didn't finish it, but it's funny because there's still scenes that like just live in my head that I'll just probably never forget and that was, a long time ago.
So are you ready to get a lot of hate in the comment section and stuff like that?
Let's go. I'm
Um,
ready. Hot takes,
so
guys. Hot takes.
Nosferatu, the movie that just came out.
Hmm.
So some aspects of it I really liked. I loved like the cinematography of it. I thought that like the look and the voice of Count Orlok was really cool.
Okay.
I only going to give the movie itself maybe like a 6 or 7 out of 10 at the most. But I liked that I kind of almost wish like instead of trying to do Nosferatu that they would have taken all of that oomph that they had going and
Hmm.
tried to do a really dedicated version of Dracula, like all the way down to like just the bare bones. Because I think the closest thing that we get for it is Bram Stoker's Dracula with
Hmm.
like Gary Oldman and stuff. And despite the love story being in that, that's still my favorite vampire movie of
Yeah.
all time. I think it's really good. But I felt like they could have done a really dedicated version of Dracula and probably knocked it out of the park. But
Okay.
I liked that they kept them. I like that they kept the mustache going because in the book Dracula had one, and everybody thinks of him as not having one. So
Right. Yeah, I have not seen Nosferatu. I
wow,
think
I am
I know.
shocked.
I don't watch a lot of things in general.
Okay,
Like when we're home as a family, we're like watching kids movies,
yeah,
or like sometimes my husband and I will watch a show, but we have to make sure it's mildly
hmm
appropriate at least. Um, if we get grabbed by a TV show, it's got to be like really, really good,
hmm
because otherwise we're hanging out at our PCs or we're hanging out with the kids.
yeah,
So yeah, I have seen, I think it's Nosferatu that they made in like, I don't know, I want to say like the 30s, like it was
the
the silent,
20s.
the 20s. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
we watched that because we have like this list of horror movies you have to see, that you scratch off with a little coin,
hmm
and that was on there and we watched it and it was an experience.
yeah. It's one of those ones where it's like I feel like it's one that you need to see just to appreciate like kind of the, and there's some kind of cool like eerie aspects of it. Like it's
Mhm.
really cool that they made this like so long ago, but
Yes.
there's also that thing of like
Yeah, I think we struggled through it. We also watched The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and that one was, I think we liked that one a little bit better, and it was cool to appreciate, they would like do these different colored slides to like give the scene a different vibe. You'd have like a
yeah.
red shade, and that was so, like the technology of that was just so, astounding at the time, and
hmm
that one had a little bit more of an interesting story, I think. But
Well,
yeah, it was an experience.
and this is something I guess is like kind of related to my book too. Is like I still love the old Universal monster movies and stuff.
Mhm.
Like even though it's like they're they might have had better versions or things like that or like updates. It's like I still really love that. I don't know that feel kind of like that 1930s like old horror movie and stuff. Kind of like the gothic horror that they created. It's just
Right.
it's real cool. So it's like in relation to my book, it's like everything's so I tried to so one thing is like I tried to keep everything as historically accurate as possible in mind until like World War II. So like when you read it, there's a whole bunch of like info on the Second World War that's in there to make it seem more grounded and believable. It's like got like this stuff with like Nazi occultism and stuff like that, where I just pretty much like subbed in Lovecraftian horror, Cthulhu mythos stuff for the regular things that the Nazis were actually doing. So
Okay.
it creates this like evil, but I also in each book I'm trying to pay homage to the old Universal monster uh things. So like with my first one, it's set in Egypt and like that Arabian area, the Middle East. So obviously it's kind of like that callback to like the old mummy and
Right.
everything. And
Okay.
then the next one's going to be in Romania. So spoiler alert. But
That
yeah,
is super cool. I love that. Yeah, I really can't wait to jump in. I have read At the Mountains of Madness is the only Lovecraft I've read.
mhm.
So that'll set me up perfect.
Yep.
My editor does a lot, like, his writing style is very Lovecraftian, which is kind of what pushed me to read Lovecraft. I had never read any before. I was
Hmm.
more like a Poe
Oh,
person.
you should love his stuff then. He was a huge Poe. He was a Poe fanboy. So all things Poe.
Perfect, perfect.
Hmm.
That sounds good. So what authors do you have any other authors that you would say influenced your writing other than Lovecraft? Any others that you really kind of draw from?
Well, let's see. So, I'm trying to work on like another series completely separate. It's not even horror. It's more like dark, kind of realistic fantasy. But
Okay.
Tolkien is always going to be at the tip top of my like my favorites list and stuff like that. It's like, and they're so different, I guess. Like when you think of like Lovecraft and Tolkien, it was like with Lovecraft, he said this like the things are scarier if there's less explanation. So they leave so much open to like interpretation, you wondering what happened, like, holy crap, like, is this bigger than you thought? There's so much
Mhm.
about it that's not explained. And with Tolkien, it's like everything is explained. Like every little blade of grass on the ground is explained. But it's cool too, because it's like it creates this whole lived in world of like
Mhm.
the different characters and the history and like a pantheon and stuff, so it's really really cool. But so he's always going to be one of my favorite ones. But like Ramsey Campbell, again, he was a good. I always liked the other guys from like Lovecraft Circle. I guess didn't even know were his circle when I was younger, but like Robert E. Howard and Robert Bloch and some of them,
Okay.
and Stephen King is as weird as some of his stuff is. Sometimes it's like it can be very very entertaining.
Yeah.
Sometimes you wonder what drugs he was on, but then sometimes it's like there's a couple books where you're just like, wow, man, like it's like this must have been like that '70s era or something when he was starting this one.
Yeah, or even just some parts of books that have a pretty normal plot, and then he just throws things in there, and you're like, "I'm sorry, what did you say?"
It's like, was that necessary? Like
Yeah, we all know we're
in the
talking about
sewer?
it.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
whatever gets your engine running, I guess. But like,
okay.
really? It's like
Yeah,
so inappropriate. Well, just that whole book, like the whole thing, like parts one and two. It's like it's just so out there. Like not even just the yeah, like somebody's even saying like he was on coke, especially for it. Yeah, like oh the turtle and like the extra dimensional stuff. Like you're just like, dude,
yes.
like
Yeah, towards the end, I was like I had to kinda slow it down. I was listening to it on audio, and I was like, "I'm sorry, wait, what?" And I had to kinda slow it down and, like, really digest because the whole rest of the book is just like I mean you don't really understand like the source of it but you get what's going on. You're like, okay, we got
mhm.
this entity, he's being our worst fears, cool. And then they get to the build up at the end and I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
Where did we go? Where did we
And
go?
that was what I said. It was like when it comes to like Lovecraft, it's like Lovecraft explained nothing. So it's like you'll have these like buildups and they'll get to like the entity or whatever it is at the end, but nothing's really explained to you as like, what is this thing? Who is this thing? Like,
Right.
where did this thing come from? It doesn't really say a whole lot, but he does a really good job of like this like real big buildup and stuff with like this really big long prose. Um, but yeah, like with Stephen King, sometimes I'm like, dude, you should probably have left that part unexplained because now that you explained it, I'm not scared anymore. This is
Right.
stupid. Like, but
That's a good
but
point
I
actually.
am
Yeah.
also but aside from a couple of things like that though, I am actually a fan of like quite a few of his things. Like it was really weird. Pet Cemetery, I actually really, really liked. Um
Yeah.
it is probably one of his more kind of dour and depressing, like nothing really happy about it type of horror books where you're just kind of like, wow, okay, that went dark
Right.
and never really got out.
Yes, that one is a good one.
Hmm.
That one is a good one for sure. I think it's probably one of my favorites. I don't really know. It's something about the storytelling, the way it goes. The
Hmm.
Dead Zone is my least favorite.
I didn't
Um,
even read that one. Like it would
yeah.
seem like it was just one where I was kind of I don't know, maybe it was because I was like talking to other people and looking at the explanation. I was like, it just doesn't seem like anything I'm really interested in. Cujo was really
Mhm,
good.
mhm.
In fact, there was the movie Cujo, which was pretty scary in and of itself. But I think the book was actually like scarier and more depressing than the movie was. I think it was I think it was way worse. So that was a good thing.
I have not seen the movie,
Oh, really?
so yeah.
Did you read the book?
Uh, it's been a very long time. That and Pet Sematary I read when I was in high school, which was totally not that long ago. I just have a terrible memory. No, it was a long time ago. So I don't recall Pet Cemetery. I recall a little better. I remember that that was actually I think I read that in middle school. Yes, I read that in like 6th or 7th grade, and I
Mhm.
loved it. I think that was my introduction to King, and I was like, "Yep, I'm gonna read this person for the rest of my life."
Yeah, that's a really good like it's one of those ones where it's like if you really want somebody to actually really enjoy Stephen King as like a horror author, then that's probably like a good spot to start. And I would say
Yeah.
Cujo is another one.
Mhm. Yep. So we talked about authors that inspired you.
Mhm.
Would you say any like movies or shows help inspire you? Is that a big part of your creative process or no?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the Universal Monster ones just kind of like getting
Right.
like a little bit of an atmosphere. But I think I was talking with somebody about this. I was like, it's really cool because you can see the change in writing around kind of like that time of like the 1920s and 30s and stuff when movies come in because you read authors before that and they can set a good scene or tell a good story and stuff like that, but once you start getting I feel like into like those the 30s and 40s, it's like you start getting kind of like the pulp authors and some other stuff, and it seems like it's because movies came about and now you're able to see your story on film,
Right.
and so then people started writing more stories that they could imagine being on film or something, so it starts to kind of jog things through. But it's like with this one, I tried not to go full on like Mummy or Indiana Jones. I really
Mhm.
tried to adhere strictly to the like the Lovecraftian horror things. And there's some action sequences and there's like the war stuff, but I really tried to keep it grounded in there because I didn't want to have it like lose itself and all and turn it into basically just like an Indiana Jones or a Mummy type of ripoff or
Right.
something. So with this one, it's kind of a little bit more kind of like the Egyptian occult and curse and feeling like that. And then the next one, I'm going to go kind of like more in like the gothic horror and stuff. So I'm
Okay.
kind of changing. Part three is going to be more like survival horror. Um, I'm kind of changing a little bit of the theme as it goes darker and everything.
That's really cool. That sounds really awesome. Um, what about music? Are you somebody who listens to music while you write? What kind of
Uh,
music?
so in my regular time, I'm a metalhead. I love all things rock. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I and this like I'm all over with the rock, but it's like I have to get. I even got my kids into rock and stuff. Like they were little, and like my one my little 3-year-old already goes like that, and he says like
Yes.
rock. He says like rock on and stuff.
That's so
And
cool.
um, but something I like to do when I'm writing is I actually do like to listen to not necessarily like full blown like music, but more like kind of the what do you call it? The ambient
Mhm. Okay.
sounds and stuff. So the last time it was like I felt like I was having a bit of writer's block, and my wife had to go out for a business trip, so I basically like once the kids were asleep, I went around. I lit all the candles that she had like in the house, turned off all the lights, turned on the TV, put on YouTube, and I turned on like one of the creepy ambient sound things and stuff like that, where it had like the creepy like sounds in the rain and like all of that
Mhm.
stuff. And then it was just like, and I hammered it out. I started going, so it was pretty cool.
That is very cool. Yeah, ambient sounds, I am learning the importance of those now that I'm working in other things other than my first book. Um, do you find that depending on what you're working on, depends on the kind of music you're listening to?
As far as so usually it's like what I do is like at least in like the ambient sounds or the ambient music or something, I try to find ones that match the mood I'm looking for. I guess it's like so instead of like matching the mood of my writing on the music, it's like I know the mood I want. So then I seek out something like the sounds or the music that have that mood in there because
Okay.
I don't know. There's something where it's like some things where it'll just strike me, and I'm like, oh yeah, now I got it, and then just like,
Yeah.
and then I just get to, like in the zone, and it becomes like a lot of fun. It's cool writing horror sometimes because I think one of the real rewards is if you're writing horror and you can feel yourself starting to get ramped up by your own buildup or something like that, or it's like you're creeping yourself out with your own
Yes.
writing or something. I'm like, this is great. This is perfect. This is it.
Yes, yep, that's how you know, you're like, "Yes, this is perfect."
Hmm.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
Yeah, music is sometimes so I just put on like a playlist. My music journey started like as far as while writing, it started because I had to drown sounds out of my house.
Hmm.
Love my
Oh.
family, but I could not I could not write with, the TV and the gaming and the kids running around. But it was funny because sometimes I found that I would tune it out eventually. So then I was just kind of in my own world. But also times I would find that I was getting really like into a scene and the music was helping me, and then next thing I know that song would then be on repeat for the next 20
Hmm.
minutes. So it's just funny how songs can just grab you, and the lyrics had
Yeah.
nothing to do with what I was writing about. It was simply the tone of it. It's just the
Yes.
sound was pushing things along.
Well, people underestimate music in terms of like setting like an atmospheric mood. Like I said, it's like I'm a total metalhead and stuff like that. But sometimes like I might be getting to say a spot in the book where I'm like, I want to have like an aristocratic atmosphere to where he is because maybe he's at like some kind of like a party or like a place where there's like some hoity-toity like high up people around and stuff. And it's like and then I'm just kind of like flipping through something like classical music or something like, what would be something that these freaking like, oh, I'm holier than thou art jerks would be listening to? Perfect or something. It's like, there we go.
Yep.
And then, yeah, I love finding just like the right music and the right
Mhm.
atmosphere. I think if I feel like if you get stuck, that can get you out of that if you
Mhm.
it can find the right music and the right tone.
Yeah, because sometimes like just a song will stir up something in me and I'm like, okay, I'm feeling sometimes I can't even listen to music on my way to work because it gets those feelings stirred up and I'm like, I can't write, so I don't want to listen to it. I'll save this for later. Cuz once
Um,
you've listened to a song, it just overplays and you're just done with those emotions for a while.
Yeah, yeah, like it can burn them out, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
and that or it's like the thing that pisses me off even more than getting burnt out on it is when you start listening to it, say in the car or something, and you get a perfect idea for a scene and how you want it, and then you get home and you've forgotten what you were thinking about on the
Yeah.
way home, and
Mhm.
you could swear to God that was perfect. It was like this is like
Yes.
this is like award winning like type of
Mhm.
stuff. I got to get this on paper, and then you get home, and you're like, the hell was I talking about?
Yeah. It's like I can still
Shit.
feel it, but I don't remember the thoughts that went with it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Like
that's
you're
the
like, oh
worst.
man, it's gone. So, but most of the time, it's like I feel like I always have a good guideline and stuff like that. So even if I lose
Mhm.
those, I kind of know at least where I'm going. So,
Right.
mhm.
Um, so we're kind of talking about music as part of the creative process. Do you have anything else? Do you have like a schedule? Do you like have a goal that you set of words a day? How does that look like? What does that look like for you?
I have no goals. I fly off the seat of my pants. The only thing that I do is before I really jump into the writing, I lay out the plot chapter by chapter. So it's just like all I do is I just have like I'm just going through. It's like I make sure there's like I bulletize all like the entire story, like all the main points and stuff like that. And then I divide all those points up evenly and say like, cool, by in this chapter, I just need to make sure I hit this bullet and this bullet. And then I just freehand it completely. Um, and then it just sometimes it's like I feel like it can get away from me a little bit because I'll realize there's like those chapters. It's like I should have had a few more because it's like now all of a sudden my chapters are like 20, 30, 40 pages a piece or something like that. I'm like, oh, I got 60,000 words in, and I'm like at chapter 6. Cool. Okay. So yeah, but it's good though. It's I have a thing where I'm the type of writer where I have to get all of it out.
Hmm.
I know some people are like, I like to put the bare bones in and then add the meat later and stuff. I'm like, I just dump all that crap out all over the page, and
Yeah.
then I go back through and I have to trim it down.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good process though, because then you get to keep what you like and you get to get rid of what doesn't work in that scene. But also, I don't know if you keep what you get rid of. Like, I've heard of some people where they'll take what they cut from books and, or just any writing piece and throw it somewhere else to use for later. But I think that's a cool process though.
Hmm.
You get to make sure you have everything you need and then you can take it back a little bit when you need to.
Yeah, and and I've had things too where, especially during the editing process, it's like I start to realize that maybe I needed to shorten this part down, move this one around and stuff. So it's
Mhm.
like everything I take out, I do try to at least keep on the back burner and stuff. But I think it's
Right.
important to get it all out because to me, or at least in my version of it and everything, is if you don't get it all out and you try to add it later, I'm gonna forget.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Yeah, and sometimes when you try to go add things later, this is my issue is I feel like I write bare bones not because I don't have the things to say at the or because I don't know, I write bare bones and then I go in and try to like add things in later. And sometimes that's good because sometimes I collect a different mood that's still important to that scene, but sometimes I'm like, man, what is the purpose of this? What is going
Hmm.
on? What do I need to say here?
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally get not having a schedule. Does that, so do you want to tell us about your job and then how that impacts your writing? Because that's something I'm super curious about.
So right now I'm a federal agent, and like I said, I use a lot of my like military experience. So like when I was in the army and when I deployed to Afghanistan, I was in a long range surveillance company, and I deployed with the like a special operations task force and stuff that was led by like ODA from Third Special Forces Group. We were training Afghan commandos. We were doing like deep line reconnaissance because that's what my company was all about. We were all like infantry paratroopers that did like deep line reconnaissance. So with being in like a LURSD, it made it so I there's a lot of things that I guess you wouldn't learn in sort of conventional infantry settings. And it was cool. Like I remember at one point we were dressed up like Afghans and civil like in the Afghan civilian clothing with fake beards on, just sitting up on a hill and stuff like that, like reporting movement and everything. It was a really cool experience. So what I try to do is I try to approach, I guess, the Danforth series from a very grounded point of view. Like I try to make sure that there's nothing I think that's worse sometimes than watching something or reading something and having that experience and feeling like what you're reading is slowly killing you because it's just like has no clue what it's talking about or I almost compare it to like the critical drinker on YouTube, like tearing movies apart or something like that, where you're just
Okay.
like, oh my God, plot hole here, plot hole here. Why would this character do this? This was so
Right.
stupid. I can't. So I try to make it so the character is either, if there's any mistakes he's making, is it's kind of written like a World War II memoir.
Okay.
That's the whole point. Like reading it is supposed to be like his memoir from World War II. And I try to approach it from these mistakes. He kind of acknowledges that maybe he's making them because this is his first time out, or he's completely novice at this, or maybe there's some sort of like a supernatural force that's compelling him to do something, even against his better judgment or something. But everything that he does is very grounded in him trying to make what would be considered like a good decision with what's been given to him at the time. And sometimes it's like, it's not like Indiana Jones where it's like he's like beating the crap out of like 5 Nazis, or there's like, like 10 guys with guns, and somehow it's like he comes out like, walking like with his gun, like, yeah, I just killed all 10 of those guys. It's like I try to approach it from a realistic side where it's like, if you're one guy and there's 5 dudes with guns and they're all equally like as trained as you are, you're probably going to die. So
Right.
it's like I try to kind of approach it from that. And maybe sometimes it's just like circumstance as to why he ends up like getting out of it alive. And like it might not be because he's firing it up and kicking butt. It might be because he's running or something. It's not, it's approached from a very, very different way, but I try to keep it realistic in that way.
Yeah, that's really important because I mean, I'm the kind of reader that if you tell me something's happening, I'm just going to go along with it. Maybe that's my character flaw, I guess. I don't know.
Mhm.
But well, especially when it comes to like military things because I don't know. Maybe
Mhm.
he could kill all 10 guys with, he just like flicked a bullet and maybe that's it. No, you know, but
Like
but
Commando. It's
you
like they run straight into the gunfire and stuff. They don't take cover or anything.
but there's definitely a lot of people out there who are going to, I read books to enjoy them. Some people read books to dissect them. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and I believe everybody should try to be as realistic in their books as possible. Obviously, this doesn't apply in the means of like fantasy and sci-fi when you're creating
Mhm.
things for a purpose. But, you know, being realistic in horror can be really hard because you need your characters to do this thing, but sometimes you have to figure out a unique way to do it. So
Mhm.
I think that's a really important detail
How many
too.
times have you seen something where it's like, oh, what does it say?
Don't know if you've read them, Chris, but I feel like you'd like Barry Eisler's John Rain series.
I have not read that, no.
Griftkin, tell us what they're about.
Yeah.
And I missed a comment up here too. Yeah, don't lie to us, Christopher. We know you love Twilight.
But do
he's,
I or do I not? I
he's
will not
pleading the fifth
divulge.
on that one.
Yeah.
He's pleading the fifth. I've heard those are really good books, but I've never picked them up.
The movies are, what a terrible day to have eyes. I don't know.
I've never seen the movies either. I don't know. I'm not cultured apparently. So,
the Yeah, but I mean, like in the vein of like the realism, though, it's like we all kind of can like I guess expand like our imagination, right? It's like you want to
mhm.
be able to get into it, so there's a certain amount of your imagination you're willing to let go because you're like, this is the story, let's get into it. But then there's certain things where it's like my imagination just can't accept that. Like
Yeah.
I always think of things like say like Game of Thrones, right? It's like if you're watching the show, you're willing to accept that there's a like a army of ice zombies that are coming to like take their entire like city or something, but then you're not willing to accept the battle plan where it's like, who the fuck put the horses outside there? Like there's no purpose to this. Like so it's like you see stuff like that and you're just like, it's so funny because the things you're willing to bend are things that are completely unrealistic. But then certain things where you're not willing to bend, you're like, I just can't
Right.
accept that. It makes no logical sense. So, I mean, that's kind of the way I approached it too.
Yeah, that makes sense. Assassin series, but very realistic military wise. Barry researches everything.
Yeah, and that was what I did too with the assassin and Jason Bourne. That's cool. Yeah, and that was what I did too. Was like the amount of research that I poured into researching World War II, and so, and you said you read Mountains of Madness.
Hmm.
And like, so Danforth in this one, it's 10 years after that story. and
Right.
he's basically been recruited by the OSS, which was the Office of Strategic Services in World War II. It's kind of like the
Okay.
CIA or something.
Okay.
And so I tried to kind of keep that whole thing where it was like I researched just everything, all the stuff that I could, and it was something where it's like I wanted to keep it, because I guess when you think of Lovecraft and you read some of his stuff, it's like everything feels so real and it feels
Hmm.
so researched, and like it feels like whoever this narrator is really knows what they're talking about. You're really not second guessing them. So that was the kind of feel I wanted, where I was like, I would bend the plot sometimes or have to adjust it, because I'd be like, okay, writing, how would this work? And then you find out that it's like, oh, that couldn't work because that type of radio didn't exist in 1941.
Okay.
Oh, or I
Right.
didn't, that was happening, so I couldn't do that. So I'll have to rearrange the entire plot just to try to make it around that, to make sure that it's that historically accurate.
That is incredible attention to detail. I've writing things, historical things. I can't even imagine the research that has to go into that. How long did you say? Like, did you have a researching period of time, or were you just was it kind of back and forth while writing?
So I research a bunch before I write, but then also it's like I'm kind of researching on the fly. Like every time I'm writing something out, it's like if I even hit a point where I think I don't know what I'm talking about, or I want to make sure, I'm like, okay, he's going to visit this area and stuff. It's like, well, wait, hold on. What was going
Right.
on in this area during World War II? Blah 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 blah. Oh crap! That area was being bombarded by artillery fire and German bombing. Okay, can't go there. Got
Yeah.
to adjust and go to somewhere else. So, yeah, it's I have to be constantly researching, and it's like it gets irritating, because sometimes it's like you feel like you knew what you were talking about. You get to a certain point and then you're like, crap, I misunderstood what it was
Mhm.
saying, and now I've got to rewrite that whole portion and go back. And or like in the second book, we're talking about like from the beginning to the end, the entire social aspect of where he was is gone from very kind of like, I guess you'd say, pro-fascist to
Mhm.
anti-fascist in the span of just that time. So it's like you're kind of wanting to capture it's basically almost like you're reading like a World War II history uh novel or something, but also just happens to have like the occult and supernatural elements that are in there.
That sounds super cool. I have a well, my husband was military, so we have
Hmm.
a lot of interest in this house also, and like
Nice.
especially World War II, a lot of the Civil War stuff too, because it happened right in our area. You can't really go a couple miles without hitting somewhere where either the Union or the Confederacy like passed through. So
Oh yeah.
it's definitely a interest in our house. Yes, period pieces demand a ton of research. Yes, and thanks for being here,
Hmm.
Jose. Yes, absolutely. I can't imagine. Hail and good evening. Hello, John. Had to drop my monthly book haul before I came over. Well, we can't wait to check that out. And thank you so much for being here. I was in the Air Force, so I was almost in the military.
Air Force has some pretty awesome guys, and I got a dog on them.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
So you talked about how you submitted your story and got the rejection. Did you ever try to like query or go like completely trad, or were you like did you send it out to a whole bunch of other places, or were you pretty set on how things went?
So the first one, it was like I got the turn down, which I'm not gonna lie, I was pissed. Um, but um, I guess I've always been kind of pursuing a combination of both. Like I didn't know when I self-published how little interest the trad publishing would then have in anything to do with your series. It seems like it's, unless you hit some sort of lottery or jackpot, for the most part, trad publishing, it's they want it, and they want it from the beginning. They want it completely, new. If you've somehow put it out there in some sort of self-publishing thing, they are not interested. They're not interested in follow-up books if it's a series and stuff like that. So I tried a lot of different avenues. Even right now, there's possibly a lucky thing, but I'm starting to realize too, after talking with a lot of people who've done trad, that it's not all it's cracked up to be. Sometimes it's there's a lot of guys I talk to where they're like, oh yeah, I thought trad was going to be the coolest thing ever, but I'm still marketing my own stuff on my own dime, or like attending book signings on my own dime. Or like they, I guess some big trad publishers will give you kind of a push, but they're like other publishers that are not like in the big five. They might give you like sort of an initial push, but a lot of times they're like, okay, well, have a social media presence and you're on your own. So
Mhm.
it doesn't feel too bad now with the I think at first I was kind of like, oh no, like what did I do? But now I'm feeling like I think I made the right call to self-publish, because I control what I do. I can come on podcasts. I can pitch my book however I want, and I have control over my work and what people see. I don't have an editor or somebody at the company calling me up saying like, hey, you need to change your ending, you need to adjust this or take this in this direction. Like, no, I can take this in whatever direction I want and do it happily, and not really even think about it. So I think there's a lot of good things that happen from the self-publishing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting that you brought that up about talking with people who have gone trad and they still have to do a lot of it themselves. There was an interview I saw recently. I can't remember who was being interviewed, but I remember Janie Wirtz came into the comments and was hanging out, and she was talking about that very same thing, how she still very much has to do a lot of her own things. And it kind I kind of was under the same impression. It's like, oh, if you're trad, then they do everything and you just sit back and like, write your cute little books and that's all you have to
Yeah,
worry
that's what I
about. But
thought
it's
too.
it's really, yeah, it's really not. You're still doing very much of your own, what we're doing now. And like you said, we get to publish what we want and say what we want. If I want to, send something out on Twitter that says buy my book, it's a steaming pile of garbage. Nobody cares.
Hmm.
It's just it's very
Yep.
freeing. And
If
I always believe that both routes have their people, and
Yep.
and everybody has their direction that they're meant to go. But I think especially in horror, I think it's really important that we get to say what we want to say in our books and not have
Yeah.
anything changed.
Well, and I think that that's really unfair to authors in general. The way, you hear some of these stories that like you see on X and stuff like that, where somebody talks about what a publisher wanted them to do with a book, and you're just kind of like, what? Why would they? Why would they do that? Like they'll be like, oh no, you should cut that character. It's like,
Hmm.
why would I cut that character? He's pivotal to the plot. They're like, well, I
Right.
just didn't like him, and I thought that he was like a jerk or something like that. It's like, okay, well, that's not your choice, but no, you've signed your life away to them. It is their
Hmm.
choice. And if they tell you to cut that character out of the book, you can cut that character out of the book, or you don't get published. And
Right.
it feels very, um, I don't know, I guess kind of greedy, almost borderline evil sometimes, the way that they treat some of the authors, like, and they're, you know, being very, very like, I don't know, just kind of shady over how they tell them that they basically have no control over their writing. I think at a certain point, if you get big enough, if you're like the J.K. Rowlings of the world or something, where it's like, you've raked in enough money, it's like it's not just like, like fuck you money. It's like shut the fuck up and do what I say money.
Right.
like,
Right.
like it's like at that point, ain't nobody gonna tell you what you can and can't do. But when you're just
Hmm.
starting out, if they tell you change the ending of your thing, okay, change the ending, or you don't get published, and nobody will ever know who you were. So kind of sucks for those low end people.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a hard decision, and you definitely have to put a lot of thought. You have to put a lot of thought into both routes, whatever you decide to do, because they both definitely have very different ends.
Hmm.
When you're querying, it's like trying to find a date that doesn't present anything of interest in their bio. And even if you think there's a chance, you'll likely never hear a thing.
Yeah. I didn't even try for agents. Like I didn't even try. I've everything was just me submitting my book to just to open submissions and stuff that were unagented. I didn't even try for an agent.
Right.
Yeah, that was just me. I was like, I'm not going to deal with this.
Yeah. I didn't know it was a thing when I started writing. I just thought it was like some magical land where like, already famous authors lived. And so
Mhm.
what the little bit that I knew about it is from Twitter and like seeing people talk about it, but it still seems like so far off. And at the end of the day, I was really glad that I went the route that I did too.
Mhm.
I did hire an editor, and like there were parts where, he would cross things out or suggest changes, but at the end of the day, that's all they were. So I could do them or not. And so that was really great. And he
Oh.
had his reasons, but of course he's not in my head. So
Mhm.
if I didn't have a perfectly good reason for having the sentence there, then I would be like, okay, yeah, I can see that probably needs to go. But some of it was like, nope,
Mhm.
I need to say this, and I got to say it the way I wanted to. So
Yeah.
that was really
And
cool.
I had a rough one because I did all my own editing at first. And I think I had said something before where it was like I didn't do any editing when I first put the book out. So I first put I started to get frustrated that nobody was biting. I was like, I'm gonna self-publish. I just took it in all of its ugly glory and just threw it out there. And then as I like started reading over it myself, that was just such a weird thing. It was like I really didn't give it a full read through. Um, and it wasn't too bad, but it's like I have this weird thing. So I read it, didn't think anything really of it. But then I started doing like a what do they call it? Like a text to speech app where it's like
Mm.
you put it in there and it reads it for you. And
Mm-hmm.
I started hearing all of my overly abused, like ridiculously, like just redundant things that I had in there. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I put this out there, like in this state. Yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, I didn't realize that I used Eldritch 99 times in the book. Like, I'm like, oh my God, now what do I do? Now I got to reread. Like, so I think it was like for about 3 weeks, I did nothing but just going through and like re uploading new versions of this book to KDP. So at this point, it's like, and I made like a crappy cover from Canva that was not very good. And so then like it didn't seem like it was catching anyone, so I had to pay for a good cover artist.
Mm-hmm.
But I think by the time I got that final cover and everything was good to go, there's probably like 5, 6, 7 different versions of my book out there that I'm just kind of like, oh my God, I hope nobody ever actually like remembers those ones. I hope they just sort of fell through the cracks. But
It's such a process, though. It's like when we start out, like, I don't know, even people still ask me, like, hey, like, you've published a book, you know what you're doing. And I'm like, no, I have no idea.
Mhm.
It's all really a learning process. And it's just a lot of trial and error. And it's a lot of publishing and unpublishing from Kindle. And it's just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's fun. And we're learning new things every day because we're doing it all ourselves. So,
Hmm. And it's just it's mortifying too when you realize that there's some sort of glaring error or something that's just
mhm.
really cringy that you needed to take out, but then you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that's in there, and you're hoping that you get it out of the system and corrected before some poor schmuck goes in there and like buys a copy of it and they see that big stupid mistake like right there. I'm like, oh no, I hope it didn't happen.
So, Chris, about that version one book I bought from you on Kindle,
Burn it, burn it.
burn it,
Don't I, just set it on fire.
just
It's
break the whole
disgusting.
Kindle.
Yep. I don't. I
Well,
don't even want to hear that it was there.
I'll tell you my publishing horror story, but it's not like a good one that I'll actually, So my editor sent me back my manuscript and I fixed everything, but I fixed it like I didn't reread my whole manuscript. I just applied his edit. So if he said to take a sentence out, I cut it, but I didn't read like before and after.
Mhm.
So I set it all up. I get my author copy, my, not for resale, fun little proof. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give it a read through. And I realized that there were a couple places that didn't even make sense because I had taken a sentence out, but then like the sentence
Oh,
after
no.
refers to that thing I took out. So I was like, oh my gosh. Luckily, I caught it before, I think I caught it before everything released. Man, that was the quickest I've gone through any book in my life
Mhm.
because I read through my whole book in 2 days. So things like this happen, and then we learn from them.
Mhm. Well, you hope you learn from them. Like, even this second one, it's like, I haven't put it out. That was something that kinda, I guess, like, chafed me a little bit, was I had a pre-order for it. I was gonna put it out, and then a trad publisher said that they would be interested in reading that and the first one, and maybe taking them as some sort of a package. So I had to try to, basically unpublish my
Oh gosh.
pre-order from KDP, and my god, it was just an absolute nightmare and stuff. And it's still up in the air. So I still
Okay.
don't know where it stands. I'm kind of like waiting to see or waiting to hear. But I'm like,
Yeah.
oh man, it's gonna delay this for such a long time. And I know it's gonna happen. They're probably gonna be like, oh no, it's nice, but you're very talented, but we're trying to find new, and yeah, shut up, whatever. And so yeah, everybody knows those freaking generic ass like like responses, like, "Oh my gosh, your book is so good, but I just feel like yeah, whatever." It's like, you sent me a response back in 5 minutes. You didn't read it. Give me a break.
Well, we all wish you the best anyway. Whatever happens is what's meant to happen. But yeah, I know that like the closer you get to being able to publish, I've only published once, but I'm getting really close for my sequel. So
Hmm.
it's just the jitters and the excitement and then the terror,
Yeah,
but also it's so just such a nervous time. So to have somebody tell
yeah.
you right at that point to like, oh wait, and it's like, oh
Yeah, it feels like I'm just like some sort of weird like suspended animation or something like that. Like, I'm like, I don't know. Like,
yeah.
should I feel excited that they wanted to read it, or should I just be like, no, like, never mind, cancel. I'm just gonna put it out myself. But either way, yeah. Oh, what
Yeah,
do we
read
got?
your book out loud. That's
Yeah.
yes, that's definitely a good one.
Hmm.
That was helpful too because I read my book out loud to myself. I
Hmm.
didn't have a thing to read out loud, but I not so much with grammar or anything because you don't really hear it in an audiobook, but when my audiobook was produced, I was listening to it and I was like, "Oh, like that sentence could have been written better." But at
Yeah.
that point I'm like, it's gone. Like I'm already halfway through my sequel, so
I had the text to speech app I was using was, what did it say? You're a great writer, but
I'm
we want something that is gayer and progressively pushes audience away from trad publishing. Bye. Yeah, pretty much. I can't remember who said it. So this is one of the craziest things that I had seen, was somebody said that they had a spy thriller and they'd sent it into trad publisher. He had trad published before, and he sent it in, and there was a portion in the book where it was him and his like partner and stuff. They're on this mission. They start having like some sort of weird like argument or something like that, but in the end it's like they decide to like squash whatever argument it is, because it's like, it's the mission, it's oriented, and then it's like in the end they realize it's like, we're still like, basically brothers and stuff. The editor gets back to him after he submits it, and he's like, yeah, you should have turned that into a gay sex scene. And I was like,
why?
what?
Like they're on a
What?
dangerous mission. They could risk their
Yeah, it's like,
lives, but hey,
uh,
let's throw this in there.
no, if I had a dime for every time I saw like two Navy SEALs just start making out in the middle of the battlefield and stuff, whatever. Like, this is like, could you
So
guys like tone it down or get a
right,
room or something? Like,
they're shooting at us right now. So
yeah, two
jeez.
alpha males, they're out there, they're like doing spy stuff, and all of a sudden it's just, whatever floats your boat, I guess. But
Yeah, that's a good example of like nothing wrong with that scenario being in a book, but if that's what people want to write about, but it's like about let's be real about the situation that we're in. It's
yeah.
We got
Like, who
back to
you got to see
realism.
what the book is, right? It's like
Right.
if it's billing itself as some sort of like a romance book and that kind of thing, then you would expect something like that to be in there. But if you're trying to get like a hard-boiled spy, no, no pun intended, like hard, but but like if you're trying to get like a hard-boiled spy thriller in there, and something like, yeah, you should turn that into a gay sex scene. It's like that kind of doesn't match the genre, but
Right.
oh, no. Like I don't know. I've heard a couple stories like that where they're just like they say like, oh, you need to put this in here, or you need to push this more, or oh, you
Yeah.
shouldn't have that character do that. You should have the other character do that or something. It's like you're throwing this entire book off.
Right. And I have to say that most books have some sort of theme that they're trying to convey. And so it's like
Mhm.
it'd be cool if like publishers just bolstered that theme rather than trying to create new ones out of a writer's work. You know,
No.
like let's figure out the theme here. Maybe it's that they're not actually reading all the way through. I don't know. But you know, let's just bolster what's already there instead of trying to create something that the author didn't even intend. I don't know. It just gets really crazy.
Well, and, men don't read or anything,
That's
so
true.
I
That's
mean,
true. That's right.
we
That's right.
we all know. I don't think we can even read at all anymore, can we? Can we write? Can we read? I don't know.
Very few things that you guys are allowed to write about, so very few things.
Yeah,
So we did talk about we've gone an hour and 20. You good for like maybe 10 more minutes?
sure. Why not?
Okay, cool. Because I wanted to get into you talked about you have your sequel and then you have another, did you say it's a fantasy, more of a fantasy project?
Yeah, yeah. And
Okay.
obviously it's like I feel like there's um how can I say it? I have like obviously like a theme. I try to use like my military background, things like that. But this one's more like it's kind of like a dark fantasy thing, but it's taking all of the things that you would see in fantasy, like from like Tolkien, stuff like that, like orcs, elves, humans, trolls, like all these like fantasy elements, and it's taking it and putting it in a realistic setting based in Afghanistan, like the war in Afghanistan. So I'm using these different, like I guess it's like different factions and stuff like that to try to actually be like an allegory and a real representation for different like tribal issues and the war and like all of that stuff, and just spin it into like different. I liked having like different converging timelines and things like that. It's pretty intricate, so it's taken me a long time to hammer it out, like a
Yeah,
really
I can
long time.
imagine. Well,
And
that's super
again,
cool.
it's the research stuff too. One of the things I'm doing with it is I'm writing it in a way that I want the stuff to sound natural.
Hmm.
So, with your husband having been military, if the military could not find a way to put something into an acronym, it would short circuit and die. So,
Yeah.
but that's the thing too, is it's like we've gotten so used to saying those acronyms in the military
Hmm.
that if you're saying it in dialogue or something like that, it sounds unnatural, because somebody who's been saying that 100 times a day is not going to just suddenly in the middle of the dialogue break out and just decide to explain or something like that, or
Right.
go on a tangent about what it is. So what I've
Hmm.
started doing is I basically like put an asterisk next to that term and then put a definition at the bottom of the page so that the readers reading it can read the dialogue, see, like, feel like it's natural and everything that's going on. But then at the
Hmm.
very bottom, there's basically footnotes that
Right.
explain what those acronyms and like all this other stuff means.
That's a good way to do it because you read it, you're like, then you can jump down, see what it means, but it doesn't really break how natural the dialogue sounds, but also you get
Mhm.
the explanation you need right away. So yeah, I've always thought so. I just got done reading A Fold to Extinction by S.S. Fitzgerald. He's one of our Dark Veil Society members, and
Mhm.
he was also in the army.
Yeah.
And this book is like a group of operators working at trying to stop something crazy happening. And so I thought he did a really good job of being realistic in a military sense without like saying a bunch of things I didn't understand. Um, and so I never have thought about that before, about how writing realistic military material could be difficult, because like you said, you want to make it sound real, but you also want the readers to understand what they're reading, if they're, you want it to be for
Yeah.
everyone.
And yeah, and it's like, and that was also the other thing too, is I was like, at what point do I want to put these acronyms in there so it makes it sound natural, it makes it sound like something that they do on the daily, so it's like you feel like this is a lived-in world, but also on the flip side, it's like, let's make this readable and not like something where you feel like you're just being beaten over the head like left and right with like ridiculous acronyms and stuff. Or yeah, and I even did the footnotes thing for like different terminology or something like that, because I wanted, if it's terminology, same thing. It's like if you're using that in dialogue or an explanation, you're not going to just suddenly break out and be like, oh yeah, well this and this and this, oh this term. Did you know that this term and the definition, like nobody does that. So it's like I take that term and then I'd put like a small explanation in the footnote down
Mhm.
below that's like, this term was developed because of this, this, and this. So it makes it feel like it's a lived in world. Like it's like
That's
that
super
these
cool.
things have been going on for the whole of history and stuff.
Right.
Yes, yes, he says like that movie. Yes, yeah, like Bright.
Okay. I've never seen
Mhm.
it, but not a big surprise there. But that's pretty cool. I think that sounds like a unique idea. Do you have any do you have any ideas as to when this, like what stage are you at? Are you in the research stage? Are you in like the rough draft?
Rough, really rough
You're
draft.
you're in the
Really rough.
stage.
Yeah, I'm still trying because it's got like several different point of view things and stuff like that. Like I'll have one that's like a team of like U.S. Army Special Forces, and another one that's coming out of the SEALs, and then another one that's coming out of like the DEA fast teams and like all this other stuff. So it's all these different points of view for like the different timelines and the characters. I mean, they're all kind of converging, so you just have like the different storylines, but then also it's like then the terminology changes for each branch, or like each point of view like has like a completely different mission subset, different stuff. So it's like then you have to deep research all of that, because the last thing you want is for maybe the Army one to sound good, but then some dude reading it for the Navy side is gonna be like, dude, like this guy is retarded. What was he doing? Like he has no clue what he's talking about or something. So I'm probably gonna have to get one of the Navy guys to review it or something like that to make sure the acronyms are all right or something.
Yeah, for sure. That does, yeah, I that's another thing to think about, is that like military stuff isn't just military stuff, because it can be different whether it's Army or Marine Corps or whatever.
Yep,
Yeah. Well, you have a lot of work ahead of you, but I'm
a
sure it'll be
lot.
fantastic. All right, so we are almost at the end of our awesome fun chat. We talked about your basically the inspirations to what you're working on and what you're currently working on. Do you have anything that you'd like to add before we close this out?
Bear with me. Just bear with me. I'm a unique character and stuff, so hopefully it'll be out. The second book, hopefully it'll be out soon. First one's out now, and I just hope people who like Lovecraft or that Lovecraftian horror really enjoy it, because there's definitely a labor of love.
That's awesome. Where can people find you? Like social media, where do you hang out at?
So I have my X account, so it's going to be Chris_M_author, and then you can also find me over at Goodreads and on Amazon.
Very cool. Yeah, I will post links to this when the replay is available, because I think that's the only time I can. I don't know. That's what Triple B always says at the end of that he has to add the links in later. So I'm just going
Yeah.
off of that. But yeah,
Mhm.
I'll add links in. So for anybody who's watching this on replay, you can find links to buy his book and go follow him and bug him on social media, and
I'm
check him out on
cantankerous on
Goodreads.
social media.
Yeah, if you can bug him, then you'll be doing something.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Thank you, chat, for being here. I appreciate everybody for popping in. If you're catching this on a replay, thanks for watching. Thank you, Chris, for being here. And that will be our chat. Oh, just news for me. I think I talked about this last time. I'm not going to be, this won't be a consistent thing for right now, doing the whole live interview. I just don't have the time for it right now. I just do it when basically when the, I don't know, when I can, when I want to. But videos, I do a video every Wednesday, so there should be one coming out soon. I might be taking a break from that for a week or two as well, because I am in the heavy editing stages and I really need to get focused, and I'm just not getting as much done as I would like to. So might be taking a break, but regardless, you'll see me around. So and the sound issue, I know some of you guys brought up the sound issue in some of my videos. That's been fixed too. So next video, I should be screaming at you rather than whispering, so enjoy. All right, guys, thanks so much for hanging out. Thanks for being here, and we will catch you guys next time. Did I hit end stream? Probably not. Oh, I got to hit end stream here too.